Good afternoon and welcome to the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. Before we get started, I just want to do just a couple of housekeeping reminders. Number one, please silence your cell phones at this time. Also, if you are interested in addressing the commission about anything on the agenda today and you are not one of the applicants, please fill out one of these forms. These forms are located just outside on the desk, and we'll make sure that we call on you when the item that you're wishing to discuss is heard. We do ask that you please limit your comments to 5 minutes. We also ask that you avoid any repetitious comments. So if your neighbors brought up a concern about drainage, then you can avoid bringing up a concern about drainage because we've heard that that's one of the issues. We do ask that if you're here with a larger group that you please pick a spokesperson and allow that spokesperson to address all of the concerns that you have if that is possible. Finally, we just ask that you follow the golden rule. Treat each other with respect, treat our applicants with respect, and treat us in the process with respect as well. So that being said, we'll move forward with our agenda and begin with the receipt of the minutes from the September 28th, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to receive the minutes of the September 28th meeting.
Commissioner Clare moves to receive the minutes from the September 28th meeting. That motion's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. Has everyone voted?
I'm a yay. It's in there. I don't know. Yes. It's green. Maybe I need to refresh. There it goes.
There we go. And the motion passes. We're now in line for continuance requests, and we'll begin with uncontested requests.
Item 17 is case C-7581, defer to October 26th. Item 18, case CE-1107, defer to November 9th. Item 19, case PC-10891, defer to November 9th. Item 20, case PC-10895, defer to November 9th. Item 21, case PC-10898, defer to November 9th. Item 22, case CPA 2023-5, defer to November 9th. Did I say 22? Item 23, case PUD 1967, defer to November 9th. Item 24, case C7410, defer to December 14th. And item 25, case PC 10900, defer to December 14th.
Thank you. And just to be clear, there's no one here wishing to be heard on any of those items. Items 17 through 25 on the agenda. Seeing none, we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to grant the continuance requests, uncontested continuance requests as read.
Commissioner Clare moves to grant the uncontested continuance requests as read. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. We're now in line for new continuance requests.
Item 9, case PUD 1969, defer to October 26th. And item 13, case PC 10904, defer to November 9th.
Thank you. I do see that as far as item 9, which is Warrior Heights, the Garden neighborhood, I see a number of our neighbors who are here as well. Just want to be clear that they're asking us to vote right now to continue this item to the October 26th meeting of the Planning Commission, which means we will not hear this case today. We would be hearing it on the 26th. So just wanted to be, or September 9th, November 9th. Go ahead. Come on, Sarah, to make sure I'm hearing the right thing.
We're looking at item 13, I believe.
Oh, sorry, I said item 9. Item 13, continued to the 9th, sorry. And that's what you all are wanting, right?
I just want to make sure November 9th.
November 9th, that's what we'd be voting on, just so we're clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. On item 14, we sent an email to staff. We're actually withdrawing that.
You're withdrawing item 14?
That's the R2, right? I mean, I said yes. Yes, we're going to withdraw that.
Okay. So we need to add item 14 to our list as withdrawn. Oh, please.
Yeah. Item 9,
please come to the microphone.
Yes, sir. Item 9, is that, are you saying that's deferred till the 26th?
That is deferred. We will be voting right now to defer it to the 26th.
Okay. I've talked to the parties presenting the PUD, and they said they'd send me an email, and we'll have a discussion between that. I guess they decided to defer. Is that the?
That's
He
what
just-
they're asking for.
He just didn't contact me to let me know, so.
Okay, and I think the applicant is here for item 9, behind you. So he might, I don't know if you want to make a comment quickly.
Mark Zitzo, on behalf of the project. We sent a request to set up a meeting to the gentleman, and we also forwarded the continuance request to them this morning.
So you're good with that, though? That we're yes. That's what we're going to vote on right now. So just for commissioners, item 9 is going to be, and that was what we were just discussing, will be deferred to October 26th. Item 13, which again is the Garden Neighborhood, Warrior Heights, that item will be continued to November 9th. Then item 14, and of course I don't have the designation right here of what 14 is, PC 10864 will be withdrawn. So I think we're looking for a motion to approve the amended new continuance requests.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the new continuance requests as read and amended.
Commissioner Clare moves to grant the new continuance requests as amended. Motion's been seconded by Commissioner Noble. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. And now we are in line for the consent docket, for which we have no items, and then we'll move on to items requiring a separate vote. And just to be clear for our neighbors, the Garden Neighborhood, we're not going to hear that case today. So we're going to move on with the agenda. We're not going to hear that. So as much as we'd love to have an audience, you may not want to sit here with us all afternoon, but we'll begin with item 1.
This is case number C-7591, a preliminary plat of Chisholm Creek Village, Phase 3, revised, located south of Northwest 115th Street and east of North Blackwelder Avenue.
Is there an applicant present? Please come to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record and tell us about your application.
Good afternoon. Brian Richards, BWR Design Group, 4516 Abbey Circle, Edmond, 73003. The civil engineer representing the developer for this project.
Excellent. Could you tell us anything special about this plat? Anything you need us to know before we vote?
It's pretty straightforward. Just switching it over from single family to duplex development. It's developed around this, so it's kind of the last remaining phase to fill in.
Cool. All right, this is in Ward 1, Commissioner Clare. Oh, this is in my ward, and I'm in support. So I am all good with it. Any other questions from commissioners? I think we're ready for a motion.
Applicant agreeable to the technical evaluations?
Yeah, we looked at this.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval item C-7591, subject to the technical evaluations.
Commissioner Clare moves to approve C-7591, subject to the technical evaluations. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. We're in line for item 2.
This is case CE-1105, application to close a portion of the private street public drainage and utility easement abutting Lot 48 in Block 28 of Gaillardia Residential Community, Section X replat.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzel at Johnson & Associates. This is an application where we're seeking to close a portion of a public easement. It's actually private street. And if you pause here, you can see that Promenade Square, the street, was never constructed as the plat originally intended. This was supposed to be an area that had a divided boulevard and a median in the center. As you can kind of see the black lines on the exhibit that indicated that. It was built as a single lane, and what that left the HOA with was this excessive side yard that they're having to maintain. So in an effort to clean that up and make it a little bit easier on the HOA, given the amount of common area that's already in this plat, We're seeking to close it so that that could be added to lot number 48.
Any questions from commissioners? I have none either. I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval of item CE 1105.
Commissioner Claire moves to recommend approval of CE 1105 to City
Sub-
Council, subject to the technical evaluations. And that motion's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. Who are we missing? Everyone vote? Excellent. And the motion passes. We're now in line for item 3.
This is PUD 1577-SP03, application for a specific plan pursuant to the approval of PUD 1577, located at 14836 Gambles Trail Drive.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow, Johnson & Associates, 20 Sheridan Avenue. This is an application for a specific plan. It conforms with the PUD. It's just a continuation of the single-story residential-style office buildings within the Quail Lakes Office Park. So happy to answer any questions, but we'd ask for your approval.
Thank you. This is in Ward 8. Commissioner Noble, any thoughts?
Nope, no thoughts, if there's no one here to speak.
Any questions from commissioners? I think we're good. Commissioner Noble.
I'd like to make a motion to approve PUD 1577 SP03.
Commissioner Noble moves to approve of the specific plan number 3 for PUD 1577. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're in line for item 4.
This is PUD 1588-SP01, application for a specific plan pursuant to the approval of PUD 1588, located at 13010 North Kelly Avenue.
Good afternoon. Matt Thomas, Quad Construction, representing Bob Moore Auto Group today. This is a specific plan, SP01, for the expansion of the Bob Moore Subaru. The specific plan was adequately satisfied for all the requirements, so it's pretty straightforward on this one.
Excellent. This is in my ward, and I am in support and don't have any questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Any commissioners with questions? Not. If I could make the motion, I would to support it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval of item PUD, or excuse me, approve PUD 1588, specific plan 01.
Commissioner Claire moves to approve of specific plan number 1 for PUD 1588. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. We're in line for item 5.
This is SP 581, application for a special permit to operate use unit 8250.10, high impact institutional in the I2 moderate industrial and AE1 overlay zone district, located at 6301 South MacArthur Boulevard.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Chad Nimmo. I represent the Federal Aviation Administration. We lease 30 buildings on Oklahoma City Airport Trust property, this being one of them. This project will renovate the second floor of the building. It's a training facility. It's a training facility today. It'll be a training facility after the renovation.
Excellent. And this is for more air traffic controllers?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. That's great. We could definitely use more of those, right? This is in Ward 3, and we are missing Commissioner Meek. Any other commissioners with questions? I do believe from staff there's a need for us to add a TE. Sarah, do you want to talk to us about that?
Sure, Sarah Welch, Planning Department, and I spoke briefly with the applicant. We were going to ask that you add a TE that says that the special permit shall apply to the lease area. That will help us when creating the ordinance for City Council to specify exactly where this use will occur.
Perfect. Do we have that down, whoever's making the motion?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions, commissioners? Otherwise, I think we're ready. Commissioner Claire?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval of special permit 581, subject to the new technical evaluation that the special permit shall apply to the lease area.
Excellent. Commissioner Claire moves to recommend approval of special permit 581, subject to the additional technical evaluation as read into the record. That motion's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. We're in line for item 6.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
This is SP 5, microphone problems, okay. SP 582, application for a special permit to operate use unit 8300.33, drinking establishments, sit-down alcohol permitted in C3, located at 2843 Southwest 44th Street, Suite A.
Excellent. Is there an applicant present? Hi. Give us your name and address for the record and tell us about your project.
Miguel Palomino, 2843 Southwest 44th. And we're looking to open up an exclusive bar for, private parties.
Great. This is in Ward 6. Commissioner Govine?
Sure. I've reviewed the application. I mean, it's a major arterial, corner of May and Southwest 44th. No outdoor seating, doesn't border any residential directly. I support the case. I don't believe anyone
No
signed
one
up
has
to
signed up
speak.
in opposition, and I'm in support as well.
I don't have any further questions.
I think we're ready.
In that case, I move to recommend approval of SP 582.
Commissioner Govine moves to approve of SP 582 to City Council. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Claire. Please cast your votes. Oops, we lost it. I didn't see it. Okay, the motion passes.
Oh, thank you.
Good luck with your project. We're in line for item 7.
This is PC 10903, application to rezone 9401 West Memorial Road from R1
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, on behalf of the applicant. The application is to rezone this to O2. If you look to the west, PUD 1742, when they came through and rezoned that, it's worth noting that they did something similar in that mid-block. You have a portion of it that's zoned O2 within that PUD. So we believe it to be compatible. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
I think the only question I had was, and sorry to just jump right in here over Nate, so sorry, but could you just clarify the limits on building height when immediately adjacent to R1? Do you remember offhand? Do I need to call Sarah just to remind us? Sarah? Sorry. I know we talked about it. I just wanted to make sure everybody heard the same thing. While Sarah's looking that up, any questions, Commissioner Claire?
No, I visited with Mr. Box earlier, and it was very helpful to learn that and see PUD 1744 how they were doing a similar zoning strategy. I do think it's a little odd location for office, but given the specific site circumstances, where we've got that small buffer on the west side that's agricultural, and then the environmental condition of the creek there that's immediately adjacent to residential. I don't know how that'll impact the development, but I'm good with this.
That's great. Sarah?
We're adjacent to the AA or the R1 district. The building height's limited to 20 feet in 1 story. And then between 35 feet and 150 feet out, then it's limited to 35 feet and 2 stories high.
Gotcha. Seems appropriate to me. I'm in support. Any other questions, comments from commissioners?
None. Do
We're
we have
ready.
anyone signed up to speak?
Nope.
All right. Well, I'll move to recommend approval of item PC 10903.
Commissioner Claire moves to recommend approval of PC 10903 to City Council. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Newman, did you vote? There we go. All good. And the motion passes. We're in line for item 8.
This is SPUD 1562, application to rezone 1140 Southwest 104th Street from SPUD 298 to SPUD 1562.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Jared, if you could go to the aerial. There you go, thank you. This is an application. Our client is seeking to purchase this building essentially for a re-tenanting. They own a laundromat business, or would like to operate a laundromat business within a portion of this building. Their goal is to subdivide it into 2 suites, one being for office, light retail, the other being for the laundromat. So it's an existing site within a PUD that is very restrictive. It currently or previously operated as an urgent care, which is much more of a retail medical type use that would see greater traffic volumes than a typical medical office. And so our applicant has proposed this SPUD. Staff has recommended approval with no TEs. Through some conversations, we understand that their concerns may have been raised about the laundromat use. And so I'm going to read into the record some proposed TEs. But staff has no TEs. They've recommended approval of this application. We believe that a small laundromat is appropriate, given that this is a fully improved 4-lane major arterial road. We also have access to a public street that we are also using and not proposing any additional curb cuts, and all existing signage will be maintained. So with that, the TEs I'd like to add into the record would be TE1 for convenience sales and services. We've already restricted it to a self-service laundromat. We want to say and clothing alteration shop. So no other uses within the convenience sales and personal services would be permitted. TE2, under maximum building size, we'd like that to be a maximum of a 3,500 square foot building. On the off chance this building was ever removed, this would ensure that no larger building got put back. And then the laundromat facility shall not exceed 2,000 square feet. Section 6, we've struck the language in red that I handed out, and we'll replace it with the existing fence along the southern SPUD boundary should be replaced with a cedar fence on galvanized posts that meets the above-mentioned requirements. The fence that's there is in disrepair. We're seeking to improve the screening. The landscaping section would be the next TE. A minimum 10-foot landscape buffer with evergreen plantings on 20-foot centers shall be placed along the south and east boundaries. And then in addition to that, street trees should be required on 104th and Winston Way. Said trees should be placed on 20-foot centers. And then the last thing we sought to do to prevent any or to mitigate any potential impact is to include hours of operation. So any use within this SPUD would be limited to hours of operation between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. We believe this is an appropriate land use given we're on a major arterial that's already been improved and abut another public street. We'd be happy to answer any questions, but we would ask for your recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Before I call on Commissioner Newman, is retail sales and services 8300.63 a currently allowed use in SPUD 298?
Sorry, can you ask that?
Is the retail sales and services use unit already in the existing SPUD?
It is not.
Okay. Commissioner Newman.
Okay, Mr. Zito and I have spoke quite a bit about this, and this building is in a series of about 5 buildings that front a residential area that was developed probably in the 70s. All 5 of those buildings are medical office. I believe one's a dentist office. One is a physical therapy. There's a realtor and a law firm. And they have worked very well historically with these office uses abutted to this residential neighborhood. And there is not a single entrance to this residential neighborhood. There's multiple entrances with streets that go between each of these existing medical office facilities. They're all occupied with the exception of this one. The residential houses are butted directly behind these offices, and they also use some of these houses use the same street as the street in question that has the access to this particular property. That being said, I know the original basis for the zoning for the PUD in place was 01 limited. And one of the things I went back and looked at was one of the purposes of 01 limited is to serve as a buffer between more intense retail and commercial uses and establish residential neighborhoods. And I think that these particular office buildings have served that purpose well. They've provided the community a much-needed service in terms of housing these offices for local activities and local businesses. At the same time, they've also done that without infringing upon bringing excess activity into abutting those neighborhoods. So literally, these houses use the same street that this entrance will use. Also, they're abutted directly behind it. With that being said, I think there's definitely a need for the coin-op laundry. And I was opposed to the coin-op laundry because it's essentially a C3 use group, and we'd be placing a C3 directly against existing residential houses, and I'm opposed to that. And we spoke briefly before the meeting. Mr. Zito indicated that they would like to subdivide it to have an additional retail, which makes me even more concerned. I know that they've restricted the uses, and I think both of these uses are things that there's a definite need for. I just feel like this particular piece of property is not the place for that. I think that it needs to be more in a traditional C3 type environment versus adjacent to existing residents. So that's where I'm at on it.
Just for clarification, I think, so that I'm understanding your concern, I think what I'm hearing you say is that there is a concern about commercial uses versus the medical services uses. And so I guess my question would be, because traditionally, my objection at least to C3 has been about the lot coverage and when it's adjacent to residential. This is at least limiting the square footage with which this building will operate. Does that make any difference? And do any of these TEs make any difference in your analysis?
Well, in my analysis, I agreed with everything in the proposal except for the specific uses. And my issue with the specific uses, I think in order for that type of business to be successful, it's going to take a lot of turns of vehicles in and out and a lot of traffic in order to make it successful financially versus, we talked about previously, it was a medical office building. In particular, it was an urgent care. You can spend a whole lot more money going in one trip, one person does there versus what they're going to in the proposed uses. Therefore, I feel like for that property to generate the amount of money it needs to be successful, it's going to have a significant amount of traffic above and beyond what would have been experienced by the medical office facilities.
So are there any, so based on, and I'm trying to make sure that
I would be more apt to this if it had access from 104th, and it does not, and I don't foresee that happening.
Yeah. So for clarification, the objection is because of the increased traffic that some of the commercial produces. And then among that list, which I'm glad that Jeff pulled up this list, among that list of approved uses, your objection is to the laundry sales, the laundry services, and the convenience sales and personal services that's been limited.
Correct.
But outside of those two uses, you're good with?
The convenience sales and personal services, 8332, I had an objection to. The laundry services, 8300.4, and the retail sales and services, 83.63.
Okay.
At the very bottom.
Gotcha. I was missing one. Other questions from commissioners? Thoughts?
Can I respond to some of those concerns before we move on?
Sure, unless people have immediate questions, but go ahead, Mark.
Sure. So in terms of traffic, let's talk about that. Winston Way is a public street. It is serving a residential neighborhood. There is interconnectivity to the west. The traffic volumes that we would be adding to that are well below what the capacity of that street would be. Knowing that traffic may come up, I did go ahead and run the numbers. So as an urgent care, you are looking somewhere between 140 and 160 trips per day, limiting the laundromat to half the building and then retail you're around 220 to 240 trips per day. So you're looking about 40 additional cars throughout the entire day based on studied traffic patterns, movement, and counts. So what we've done is restricted this to a point that this is not going to exacerbate traffic, although we are on a major arterial that's already been improved. So I don't believe for the uses that we propose, traffic will be any concern. I don't disagree that O1 can be a compatible use against R1, but that doesn't mean that the SPUD that is proposed isn't compatible. There's a large shopping center across the street that backs up to R1 single family. This is a very restrictive SPUD, and we're happy to further restrict it if there are retail uses that you don't want to see occur here. But the limitation on square footage will ultimately limit not only the traffic, but the type of user that could ever even go into the shop. And then I think that covers all of the objections. We still feel that this is a very compatible project. I don't own or operate a laundromat. I can't speak to the economics. I don't know if that commissioner has, but based on the traffic patterns, we don't think that this is going to exacerbate traffic in the area.
Okay, appreciate that. Other questions, thoughts, Commissioner?
Well, while the applicant's here, is there, it's been noted that we don't think there's any other way to handle access to and from the site. Is that a given? Is there any other opportunities to take, I noticed there's this kind of a weird easement to the right. Is that not your property, or is that an easement of any kind, or is that just privately owned?
So it's an easement that services an oil well south of there. If it pleased the commission and it would gain support that we had to construct access off of 104th, I think the owner may be open to that. From a traffic management standpoint, I think that would exacerbate any issue, because now you have two curb cuts onto a major arterial within 150 feet of each other, and you create a lot more conflict of people trying to turn left and right out of those two drives.
That makes sense.
Other questions, commissioners? We have no one signed up to speak. Commissioner Claire, to put you on the spot as our resident landscape architect, could you speak to the appropriateness and effectiveness of what is proposed in the buffering between this building and the home directly south?
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask what the intent of the 10-foot landscape buffer with evergreen plantings, 20-foot on center. Are those shrubs or trees or?
We're open to either. I think the goal was to give additional screening. There's some landscaping there, but it's sporadic. As mentioned, this project has existed for quite some time, so I think some of the vegetation has moved on. So the goal was to provide evergreen plantings in addition to a new cedar fence to further buffer the headlight glare that may occur. But if there's a different planting selection that you request, we're happy to consider that.
It wasn't clear to me whether you were trying to provide a solid landscape buffer or intermittent.
I think the goal of the landscaping was really to enhance the entrance to the neighborhood, since that seemed to be a concern. If we needed to look at a row of hedges along the south in lieu of the 20-foot plantings, we'd be happy to do that.
But unless you're reconstructing the fence, so, I mean, I'm of the opinion that if you're doing the new fence, that just shade trees, street trees on a 20-foot center would be sufficient, because you've got the fence that takes everything from 0 to 6 feet, and then you get shade trees that get up above the 6 feet, so.
To the traffic count point, I mean, I know urgent care still produces traffic. So I guess I don't know how realistic that is to compare to any traditional retail. I'm almost wondering if it's better from the traffic standpoint to just say, let's nix retail sales and just allow them to have the laundromat use. Thoughts?
I do feel like there's, the TEs are obviously trying to mitigate these circumstances in a positive way, so I want to give some credit for that at least. One thing I was going to bring up, there is an existing dumpster that's not screened. If we were to move forward, I'm just going to throw the dumpster screening into the conversation. If there's a new fence being provided on the south, we might as well require screening if we head that direction.
Yeah.
If that would be amenable.
Is we can screen the dumpster if we need to, if there are certain retail uses that are deemed less appropriate, we're happy to consider further removing that. I think the goal was limit the square footage to prevent any high traffic use in addition to an hours of operation. So there's concern of certain ones, a TV repair store or medical marijuana, we're happy to remove those.
Well, certainly those two, certainly the liquor store and the medical marijuana, let's go ahead and strike that right now.
Happy to do that. Some of the ancillary uses with a laundromat may fall under a retail type category, and that could be shoe repair, that could be the seamstress. We've tried to add those in. That's the fear. We don't want to be back here in a year when a tenant comes in with something that does not generate a lot of traffic, that's not considered a nuisance, and have to go all the way back through this process.
Other thoughts? I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, that improves it some, addressing your concern, Commissioner Newman.
You know, that improves it, but again, my problem was with the basic use of the coin-op laundry. I think that's going to be the laundry services to me. And I haven't researched the specifics in terms of the traffic counts themselves, just general observations. I know that seems high to me on again, I haven't researched it, but that seems high to me on the urgent care compared to what I see normally the traffic down the street at the one down the street from me. And I appreciate the concessions. I just still have the issue with the traffic from the core business that they want to do here.
So would eliminating the retail use, keeping this limited to a laundromat and alteration shop actually improve that concern?
It improves it somewhat, but again, the laundromat was my main concern. That was my driving concern, and I also understand that's the main purpose of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's
here.
what the applicant does.
Correct.
That piece is non-negotiable. Without that, we're not here requesting a
No,
rezoning.
and I fully understand that.
Any other thoughts, commissioners? I mean, I hear you, Commissioner Newman. That's why I think these buffers are really important. But comparatively, I don't know that I have enough evidence at this point that tells me that a laundromat is going to generate any much more or less appropriate traffic than what urgent care was already doing. So that's why I think I'm kind of, what do we do to protect the neighbors from having too many people in their parking lot? I think that's what I'm more worried about. But Commissioner Claire?
Well, I was gonna say, I don't drive by a laundromat on a daily basis, but I, on occasion, pass by them, and they're not terribly active. I mean, the folks that need those types of facilities are sometimes there at, 8, 10 o'clock at night.
Well, we would limit the hours to 9.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what the current urgent care.
But, yeah.
With laundromats, the service that comes with it is wash and fold. As a user of a laundromat and wash and fold service, because I don't like folding my laundry, you drop it off on your way into work and you pick it up on your way home. It's not any different than a lot of other uses.
Well, but this is not that. I thought this was self-service, that it's just, it's both. Okay,
Yeah, a laundromat has both, but the wash and fold is a core piece of the business.
gotcha. But as far as land use is concerned and what we'd be approving today, you could theoretically make it all, coin operated.
Right.
Right. That's not the intention of this user, but if we were to approve this use unit, that's what it would effectively do.
Same thing for me is the use units are a concern. I would propose to at least do an 8-foot fence also.
Other thoughts, commissioners? Mark?
If that's what it takes to get it
he's
done,
good with 8 feet.
we're agreeable.
10-foot wall, anyone?
Huh?
10-foot wall?
I think
We're
we're good
not
with.
agreeable to a masonry wall, no.
Commissioners, where are we? As far as the use is concerned, I mean, I think I certainly share the concern Let's protect the neighborhood from excessive traffic. Let's protect them from excessive noise. Let's protect them from light. Let's protect them from any of the pollution, any of those kinds of immediate concerns. I think the effort to provide an appropriate buffer, appropriate landscaping, a taller fence are all really good methods, and limiting the hours of operation are all really good methods of trying to protect the neighborhood. So, I mean, I would be in support with these limitations because it seems consistent with the convenience, with the kinds of in and out traffic you'd see in an urgent care facility. So, but it doesn't sound like we have consensus yet, so I'm wondering where we generally are here.
I'm just looking at the compromises that have been offered that I feel are pretty substantial items to help the situation. So I'm not as familiar with the nuances of this local community, this particular block and the historic uses. So that's where I kind of, I'm out of my ward on that one. But it certainly feels like a lot of people don't offer up these kinds of things to protect the neighbors.
Where I'm at, I'm still opposed to it, but I also get the feeling that some of you would like to, if it moves forward, see it move forward with the TEs.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I would like to propose is to go ahead and vote on it, which I will be a no vote on it, but go ahead and vote on recommending approval of SPUD 1562 and with the TEs attached to it. And we're going to have to read back through those, I think, at this point in time. And then we can take a vote on it.
Okay. Other thoughts, commissioners? Are we all in the same place? Do we have people who share Commissioner Newman's objection to this rezoning application?
Some, but not completely.
Presumably, we don't have any protests.
We do not.
Okay.
Right.
Commissioner Privet, any further changes then?
No, I think the 8-foot fence is good.
Sounds like we're going to need a different commissioner to make the motion for recommending approval.
Yeah, well, yeah, if he's going to, no vote is vote.
Anyone want to take the first stab at it? No one wants to take the first stab at it.
No, I'll
Will.
move to,
Will.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval to City Council of SPUD 1562, subject to the technical evaluations. And I'll
Why don't you go ahead and read them and then add the fence?
I'll read through these. Technical evaluation 1, convenience sales and personal services, 8300.32. Use shall read further limited to a self-service laundromat and clothing alteration shop, as well as retail sales and services, 8300.63, maximum of 1,500 square feet. Are we striking that? Or are we leaving that?
Sounds like we're leaving it.
Okay.
We're leaving it.
All right, leaving that. TE2, maximum building size within the SPUD should be 3,500 square feet. Existing buildings shall be deemed in conformance. The laundromat and/or laundry services shall not exceed 2,000 square feet. Technical evaluation 3, site-proof screening, no less than an 8-foot site-proof screen shall be required along the SPUD boundaries and adjacent property zone for residential use. Said site-proof screen may be constructed of stucco, brick, stone, wood, steel, iron, and/or combination thereof, and shall be solid and opaque. The existing fence on the south side of the PDO shall be replaced with an 8-foot cedar fence on galvanized posts that meets the above-mentioned requirements. Technical evaluation 4, landscaping, revised paragraph 2, minimum 10-foot landscape buffer with evergreen plantings on 20-foot centers shall be provided along the south and east boundaries, and street trees shall be required along Southwest 4th and South Winston Way. Said trees will be placed on 20-foot centers. And then technical evaluation 5, hours of operation for all uses within the SPUD shall be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Right.
And were we wanting to further limit 8300.63 retail sales and services?
I think we talked about removing medical marijuana
Dispensaries
uses.
Oh, yeah.
and liquor stores, stuff like that.
Yep.
I think that'd be probably smart.
And screen the dumpster. So I guess we're further amending Commissioner Clare's motion.
So add technical evaluation 6 to the dumpster shall be screened, and amending technical evaluation 1, item B.
Medical marijuana sales and liquor store sales shall be prohibited.
Correct.
And then one correction, and I may have been a typo, but we had said east, the east property line would have buffer. It's an access easement. I don't know that we can actually fit a 10-foot landscape buffer there, so it should just be the south, west, and north where additional landscaping and screening is provided, not on the east side.
Gotcha. So we need to amend TE4 that it apply, that the landscape buffer is to the, along the south boundary, not the east boundary.
Thank you.
Does anyone need any further clarification? Commissioner Clare moves to recommend approval of SPUD 1562 to City Council, subject to the technical evaluations as read into the record. That motion's been seconded, I hope. Let's see if someone did. The motion's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're in line for item 10.
Item 10 is PUD 1965, application to rezone 7900 North Broadway extension from PUD 936-02 and SPUD 426.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Hey, Jared. That's the case map. So this is an application along Broadway extension just north of Wilshire. If you're familiar with the half development, which is where Flick's Brew House and Chicken Pickle and all those things, this is the south half of that development. So what you'll see here is really in furtherance of what's going on there, plus the addition of an on-queue right there at the hard corner of Wilshire and Broadway extension. So the PUD very much matches that. There are 2 TEs. One TE asks that we provide a sidewalk along the Broadway Extension Service Road. We think that is a bad idea. We think that's not where we want pedestrians. If you look at the exhibit I have here, everywhere you see that is blue represents a sidewalk and pedestrian way. So obviously the concern is how do we get pedestrians from the south to the north? There are so many ways to get through the development from the south to the north in a much safer way than walking on a highway service road. Wilshire will have a sidewalk. It's an arterial. That's where the code obviously requires sidewalks. But in terms of having pedestrians along the Broadway Extension Service Road where traffic is flying at high rates of speed, we believe that to be a bad idea. Having them internal where it's more controlled and traffic is at a slower pace, we believe to be a much better and safer way to do it from a pedestrian standpoint. So with that, we'd ask that we strike TE1, and we are in agreement with TE2.
Excellent. This is in my ward. I've met with the applicant and the engineer. I am overall totally in support. I think it's a great project. The half development is wonderful. Very happy to see this development continue to grow. We, in our meeting with David about this, Commissioner Govine and I raised a lot of questions about the sidewalks and the value of having the sidewalks on the service road. What ultimately persuaded me was the extensive effort to ensure that there is safe, clear ways for people to go north through the connectivity that's being built in internally, because that is a concern. I know that this is still a hypothetical because we have not received an application, but if there were to be a significant development directly to the east, such as a school, it'd be great to make sure that there are safe ways for there to be pedestrian connectivity, safe ways for people to get around to the upper parts of the half development, which are provided for on Wilshire and through the pedestrian connectivity that's already in the application. I'm in support. We do not have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Any other thoughts, questions from commissioners?
I'm in support based on David's meeting, but also a much more extensive explanation of the pedestrian connections within the development from another engineer on the project, so appreciate that. I
It
don't
was
like.
Mark versus David, and it sounds like we picked Mark.
Well,
Did you hear that he doesn't even fold his own clothes?
yeah, well, and I get that too. You had a very legal rationale, whereas Mark explained it in the mind of someone who thinks about design. So I got it. I got his version. However, I would say that it sure would be great to see those things on the actual exhibit that we're looking at. Like the text rules, so I'm good with that. But what's in the packet doesn't show pedestrian connections on Wilshire. But I recognize that things move along in the 4 weeks or so that since when you submit these. So I'm only supporting the no sidewalks on the service road, not because it's a service road, but because there are preferable alternative pedestrian connections designed into the development. So good job there.
Just want to note that for future cases. Other thoughts, commissioners? Would anyone else like to weigh in on the Mark versus David, who argues it better thing? Would anyone else like to
Give us
vote on
5
that?
minutes each at the podium, and I'll leave you no choice.
I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to recommend approval to City Council of PUD 1965, subject to technical evaluation 2, striking technical evaluation 1.
Commissioner Clare moves to recommend approval of PUD 1965 to City Council, eliminating TE1, keeping TE2. That motion has been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And the
Thank
motion
you.
passes. Thank you. We're in line for item 11.
Item 11 is case PC 10905, application to rezone 1021 Northwest 67th Street from I-1 to I-2.
My name is Jim Holman, 601 North Broadway. I'm here to answer any questions for the applicant.
We do not have Commissioner Powers here. Any questions, commissioners?
It's gonna be an auto lot, is that what we're on?
You gonna do an auto lot, Jim?
Beg your pardon?
I said, are you gonna do an auto lot?
Yes.
Just kind of seems small to me for that use, but I don't know.
You know, what's interesting, and I spent 10 years on the Motor Vehicle Commission, is that one size fits all in terms of licensing dealers. If you're gonna sell 5 cars a year or 5 million cars a year, it's the same license in Oklahoma. So this would be a very low volume usage.
Okay. Anything gonna change with the structures, or is it just stand the way it is?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Structurally, the buildings that are on the property, it's all staying the same?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Jim, do you have any experience in the auto sales industry?
Not over 50 years.
Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'm in full support. Any other questions from commissioners? I think we're ready for a motion.
I'll move to recommend approval, item PC 10905.
Commissioner Clare moves to recommend approval of PC 10905 to City Council. Let's see if we have it. Commissioner, and that motion's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're in line for item 12.
This is PUD 1950, application to rezone 13500 North Midwest Boulevard from AA.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. So this is an application that you've seen now multiple times. A lot of work has been done on this site by my client with the neighbors. This is an application that you've seen many other applications in this area, notably directly south of us, which is RA. And normally I parade up here with a big exhibit and I talk about how it's RA next to RA, next to RA, next to RA, next to RA. And staff has recommended denial, but consistently this planning commission has recommended approval and ultimately the city council has approved it. Well, I've defied the odds and I've done it. I've finally come to you with an application that staff not only recommends approval of, but they do it without any technical evaluations. The reason being, this is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Why don't you go back to that thing? So It's worth noting this is where we started. When we first filed our application, it was a straight C3 application for the corner and RA behind it. That along with the comprehensive plan change. The Planning Commission, you approved the comprehensive plan change to rural medium and told us to go back. The neighbors didn't want the commercial, they didn't like the density. So we came back with a PUD and we started working towards a density calculation that conformed to the comp plan and hopefully arrived at a point to where the neighbors were happy or at least willing to accept it. So if you think back to those zoning maps that I showed that are littered with RA, could you go back to the zoning map? What you have now is a PUD with a base zoning of RA2, which if you think back to the first staff report, the request from staff was come back with a PUD with a base of RA2. Now we've done it. And within the RA2 PUD, we've limited the total number of lots to 21. We've created other limitations that I think ultimately are why the staff recommended approval with no TEs. Now, I do see my friend, Mr. Whitman's here. I'd be remiss if I didn't remind the commission that he owns the property north and west of us that is zoned RA and C3, which of course is what we started this journey with. And now we've moved all the way to an RA2 PUD consistent with the rural medium comprehensive plan designation that this site now possesses. There were a host of questions asked of us this week, many of which are things that I believe to be outside the purview of the Planning Commission. Commissioner Pennington was on those emails. They were asking for certain deed restrictions to apply, I guess presumably that ran in favor of them as it relates to how we maintain certain things within the site. We believe that to be not consistent with what cities do. We will comply with all city ordinances. We have large lots now that will more than exceed what this city has traditionally allowed for on-site private sanitary sewer solutions. One of the concerns that I was told today exists is what if the Turnpike acquires more right-of-way and takes some of that land? Well, I don't think that that is a fair analysis. I think you as the Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council has to evaluate a case based upon the facts as they exist today. The Turnpike has never approached us to acquire any of the land. Therefore, my client as the owner of the property, is entitled legally to go and plan and design his property consistent with the way that the world exists at the moment. To engage in hypotheticals about what if a condemning authority takes certain portions of the property, well, if we did that, these meetings would be 12 hours long, and every single application would have that same concern. So what I would suggest to you is you have to look at this as it relates today in how it affects with the comprehensive plan and how our land is situated. So right now we have 41.37 acres and we have 21 lots. What that equates to is 1 lot per every 1.97 acres. We came from half to 3/4 acre to 1 lot per almost 2 acres. I think that shows a tremendous amount of effort on my client's part to try to get to a point to where the neighbors are satisfied. So all of the other things, we're not in a position to be able to agree to them, and I don't think it's fair to analyze this case in a series of hypotheticals. The folks that are going to be objecting, I think it's important that you recall they live north of Memorial, and if you look at what exists on 139th Street, that is straight RA. Those are 1 acre lots throughout the entirety of the development. We now have an RA2 application completely consistent with the area and, more importantly, the comprehensive plan. Happy to answer any questions.
This is in Ward 7. We've had a number of meetings, commissioners, over the course of this amount of time, and I appreciate the neighbors' efforts and their patience, and I feel like we've made really good progress by everyone being willing to come together and hear each other, and I'll ask Mr. Whitman to make his way on up to the podium as well. But I think there are a few issues that remain, and I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to speak for the neighbors. I'm just going to share some things to keep in mind. There is an overwhelming concern about the traffic and quality of Memorial Road. There is an overwhelming concern that it is not safe, that the traffic that is on it moves very quickly, and so there is a motivation on the part of the neighbors to limit access to this neighborhood on Memorial Road to just 1. They're also concerned about additional driveways, but I did explain to them that even if we didn't rezone this property, the existing owner could put driveways to access homes on Memorial right now. Maybe not as many, but that concern exists even without rezoning. I think another overwhelming concern is about the density and making sure that things fit with the character of the neighborhood, and I share that concern. As you all know, we did rezone the area just south to RA, but we did require some additional buffering next to the AA, just outside of it. We required those lots to be 2 acres, so it's a little different. So I think just for the sake of moving this conversation along in the most efficient way possible, I think we're aware, Kirk, of the overall concern about density. So the initial question for us is, we know how you all feel about that. We know you want it to be 5-acre lots. We know you don't want anything lower than 5-acre lots. The neighbors, could you all wave? I know they're back there. I know y'all are back in the back. You all wave. I know you all agree with what I'm saying, right? So the commission knows these neighbors live on Memorial Road. They are concerned about this. They agree with the idea that they want it to stay 5 acres, but if it's gonna go to RA2, they have some very specific concerns. So I think, Kirk, rather than just giving us the speech again overall about this, if you don't mind, could we just drill into the very specific list that Kim had? And don't let me stop you if you want to give us an overall, concern.
I had a question first.
Please.
2 of the commissioners, I know from talking and hearing them at a hearing, favored 2 acres plus, and they're not here. Can you ask for a continuance because of that, or just proceed with the 6 or 7 that's left?
Well, I mean, as long as we have a majority, we can make a recommendation.
Okay.
So as long as we have a quorum, we can do that.
Okay. I'm Kirk Whitman, 13901 North Midwest Boulevard. We've addressed the commissioners several times, as you've known. They've made a big move. We appreciate that. Still some major concerns. To respond to the 1 acre that was zoned, I've told you all 42 years ago when it was approved, those lots are 1.6, I think, average, and my house and barn and fence sit on 7 of them, so it's gonna be at least 2 acres. And I'm not developing it. It's been there for 40-something years, and it's completely fenced, so if that's a big concern of theirs, I'll go to 2 acres if it makes them happy. So the biggest concerns are the density for, max density is 0.45 DUs per acre. 41.37 acres, that's 18.62 lots. You can round it to 19 if you want. They're asking for 0.5. Under the own rules, it says less than 0.5 in your all's rules. It doesn't say less than and equal to, it says less than 0.5. And 0.45 is what's recommended by the staff, or was recommended by the staff. That's 18.62 acres. If we went to 19, that's, who cares? 20,
So-
20, okay.
So just
You
to,
get 21, you start going up and up and up and up and up, and the next guy says, well, let's go 25, let's go 27, let's go 28. So we want the thing to be 2 acres minimum per lot. That's it.
which would mean, so let's get down to the details here, Kirk. You're saying you would like this application to be amended to limit the number of dwelling units from 21 maximum to what?
19 is what the rule says. But
Sarah, can we get a?
20 would be acceptable. I think it's 18.67.
Let's go ahead and let's hear directly from staff about their interpretation of what RA2 means. We don't even have to leave it up to the commission's beliefs. We can hear directly from staff about what it is.
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. The RA2 base district, if you're going strictly out of the zoning code, if this was zoned RA2, it's between 0.35 and 0.45 dwelling units per acre. The difference depends on the amount of open space provided. They're in a PUD, so they're requesting to modify the density to be 0.5. And my interpretation of that is because when the land use typology was changed by this commission from rural low to rural medium, our rural medium LUDA calls for a density of 0.5. So we don't, again, I think I've said this before, we don't have a zoning district that exactly aligns with our rural medium LUDA yet.
So it fits the LUDA, therefore is consistent with the comprehensive plan,
It-
but the zoning does not match.
It does, and it does differ from what a base RA2 would allow.
So, brass tacks,
Here's the rural density right here out of your online deal, and it's less than 0.5.
okay, but brass tacks, again, for this commission, making a decision today about what we're voting on. We are voting on, the request from the neighbors is stick to what RA's definition of 3.35, excuse me, 3.5.
0.35 to 0.45.
0.35 to 0.45, and to make that exact would mean you'd limit the number of dwelling units to 19 instead of what's been specified, the 21. So the question is, how do we feel about the difference between 19 versus 21? Kirk, do you want to say anything about that before I call on David to make his statement about that?
The only thing I was going to say is, I don't have a problem with 20. I think 19 is what the rules require, and I hate to see, if you can put in an exception to the rule and go with 20, and it's not expanded on next week, I'd be willing to do that. That's just my opinion. But 19 is what it's required.
Okay. Let's give David a second to respond to that.
Oh, sorry.
So when we keep saying what's required, I think that's false. If that was required, we'd have a recommendation for denial, much like I've had every other time I've brought an application here. Your professional planners believe that what we have through this PUD, through the limitations we put in the PUD and the cap of lots within the PUD, it is 100% compliant with the comprehensive plan, which is why I think it represents the first item on your docket today that doesn't even have a single technical evaluation.
So where are you on 19 versus 21?
We want 21 because we have been the only party that has moved. My belief is that once I saw the staff report and saw that the recommendation for approval came down, the request was actually 20 until right now. In the email that you were on, Commissioner Pennington, with Ms. Horton, the request was 20. And so now we're moving against that number.
Questions from commissioners on this issue? I wanted to make sure that we were very clear about the neighbors' specific concerns and objections, because they have worked together to get to the proposal we have now, but there are still some remaining issues, and so I told them, let's just tell the commission exactly where you are on each item so that we're clear. Thoughts on 19 versus 21?
Good with 20.
To me, it's a PUD, 21. I mean, that's why you have a PUD, that's why it's not straight zoning, there's revisions.
Other thoughts? Okay, I'm making notes of these items so that we've heard concerns from the neighbors, we've heard from the applicant. Now we know where we at least have some idea that that's one thing we need to make sure we're clear on. Next thing, Kirk.
Okay. As I did say, 20 would be reasonable. The other thing was lot coverage. The city said 30%. They had 50%. I don't know what it came down to. I don't know if it's 30% coverage or 50% coverage under their application. It seemed ambiguous to me which it is.
Sarah? Looks like 30.
30? Okay, no problem.
So we're good on 30?
Yes, sir.
Kirk? Okay.
Yes, sir. We agree with them. They best efforts to keep 60% of the trees. I mean, nobody wants to look at the road. They don't want to look at it. Their people that they're going to sell to don't want to look at it, so we're in agreement on that.
Cool.
That was one of the things that somebody had a beef with. The Oklahoma City Development Plan 5.10.2 states that there will be 2 points of entry shall be provided to each subdivision. This is a subdivision, I assume. I don't
Yes.
know if you can put 8 or 9 or 12 or 15. But what I read in 5.102 says there'll be 2 points of entry. I'm a little naive at this. I'm sure Mr. Box has got an answer for that. The only other thing I would say with entry points is I think it's not in the best interest of anybody to have an entry point within 200 feet of that intersection. It's a huge hill. People are flying. It's dangerous. T-bones happen. And to put a driveway 200 feet or 20 feet or 50 feet from that intersection, I think is a big mistake.
So Kirk, is your objection to where it's located, or is your objection to the number? Because it sounds like it's both, but I want to be clear. Are
It
you
is.
asking the applicant to limit the access to the subdivision on Memorial Road to just one entry? Is what it sounds like you're asking for,
We could go 2 entrances on
on Memorial?
Yes.
So you want a maximum of two entrances possible?
And you could have another one on Midwest if you chose.
So we're fine with one entry to the subdivision on Memorial, but if the lots are developed in a larger manner consistent with the PUD, individual driveways onto Memorial should
Exactly.
be permitted. But in
Those are
terms of like
different.
a general entryway into the neighborhood, we're fine with the one on Memorial.
Okay. Kirk, where are you on
And
that?
one on Midwest
Where are y'all on that?
With
One on Midwest Boulevard,
one on each.
One on each.
in terms of neighborhood
Access to
entry,
the subdivision.
not limiting the driveways onto Memorial.
Right.
Is there a limit to the driveways?
No.
We have requirements in here about lot sizes and separation of driveways within the PUD. The separation of driveways, I think, are consistent with what we see across the street on your side.
Because it limits the lot size, the width to, I don't remember what it is.
250 feet.
250 feet. So that's that's what's limiting to the number of driveways,
Okay.
is the lot size that'd be allowed on Memorial. Lot width size.
So you will have a main entrance on Memorial with a landing and takeoff strip, or whatever you want to call it, descending and ascending, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, so the general
And then-
neighborhood access.
And then you want, every 250 feet, you can have another driveway if they so choose, or they're required to.
If it's developed in a manner consistent with the limitations within the PUD.
Okay.
So what it would mean is, they don't know if they're gonna build, there could be 0 driveways off of Memorial Road. That is a possibility, that there are 0. There's also a possibility that there could be some. The limitation that's there is that the lot width is limited to the 250 feet. Therefore, you couldn't exceed that along Memorial Road, whatever that number of lots is based on.
But a
250
driveway
feet.
couldn't be within 250 feet of your entranceway either.
Correct.
Okay, so that eliminates 500 feet, so you're down to 7 or 6
Well,
or
Kirk,
7
don't make me do
driveways.
math, that's why I went to law school.
Okay. You like the math?
So, what's the next one?
Let's see. Drainage area, only thing I was requesting is, when you have a meeting with the city engineers, is it possible we could be notified to meet to talk about the drainage and the?
We can
But when the
certainly
plat-
send you studies and you'll, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was about to say, when the plat comes, you'll get notice
We will still continue to
for
get.
plat, for the plat, yes.
Okay.
And that's when the drainage issues will be addressed,
so-
is before the final plat,
So that takes care of itself.
yes.
Aerobics, I can't control that. I think they ought to be tested every 6 months or a year. Everybody's been through class, everybody knows what runs downhill. I wish you guys would put that in the covenants, but I can't make the commissioner vote.
We can't make you do that, just so that the neighbors, I'm sure some are listening
got
to
it.
us at home. We
I can tell
cannot
you-
require them to do that.
I can tell you that the perk tests out here are not always successful. Okay. And that's another problem. 57 advisory, this is plugged well. The plugged well site, I've advised you of that. It's 4 feet below the surface. You don't want to have a guy dig a pool. You know, he said we haven't given up anything. I mean, when we came last meeting, we wanted 5 acres, and I think I expressed that I thought we got ambushed, because it all of a sudden, we didn't even have a say, and all of a sudden it went from 5 to 2, but we're dealing with 2 now, so the best we're hoping for is a minimum of 2.
Well, I appreciate the work that's been done
Yes,
on
yes.
all sides.
All sides.
To listen and try to get to a fair resolution. Any remaining issues, Kirk, that the
Okay,
commission needs to?
I'll make this quick.
Okay.
Recap, 2 acre minimum. There was no exhibits with the plan, was there supposed to be? Exhibits A, B, and C?
Doesn't have
The
to be.
legal description, master plan, and topography?
You wanting to see us?
I never saw any of those.
When we submitted it, it was. When I was sending red line versions of the PUD, I didn't attach exhibits each time because they didn't change.
Okay, because I never saw any of that. Okay, all right. Lot size should be minimum 2 acres, the LUDA reduced, lot coverage, I'm just talking out loud, 50%, density 3.35, 0.35. Setback, any entrance, 200 feet from the intersection at least, driveways. I'm sure the driveways are concrete if they come off Memorial Road.
The city will require
Rural
that.
medium requires, rural medium requires 8 minutes to the site, and it's 8 minutes and 20 seconds, but I was only driving a Porsche Turbo, so.
Kirk, anything else on your list?
Nope,
Okay. Neighbors?
that's it.
Was it accurate reflection of? Yeah, okay. I think any remaining statement, because after
No,
then we're just going to send it right, the commission's going to
We have
talk.
gone from 8 lots now to 20, or 19 or 20, and they've made concessions, we've made concessions. We're missing 2 commissioners, I wish were here, but I just ask that you guys consider it. It's an environmentally sensitive area, everybody knows that, and we'd ask that you approve our wishes on this deal and not theirs.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you.
Last statement before commission discusses.
Well, I mean, we'd like to, I guess, kind of hear where the commission's at, because like I said, 21 lots is an important number to us, and we think, I mean, we know it represents compatibility with the comp plan, but we'd like to hear the commission's thoughts.
Thoughts on 21 versus 19 versus 20?
I have no issues with 21.
It's not a deal breaker for me, but yeah, if you want to go to 20, I'll go to 20.
I'd rather see 20, but I'm okay with 21 because I feel like it's sort of a big change from where we started.
True. We started at 44 and commercial.
I agree.
Commissioner Govine?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I like 20, but 21 is a good compromise.
Are we at 5 for 21 at this point, or where are we? Commissioner LaForge?
Depends on multiple things, so I'll go with the flow. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. It's not just that one issue for me.
Anything, so it sounds like we're okay with the limitations on the points of entry. We're clear about that, right? That it'd be limited to 1 on Memorial. When y'all are not shaking your heads or telling me anything, I'm like, am I saying what's accurate? Or I'm looking at you, Kirk. I'm saying what's accurate, right? We're at 1 entrance on Memorial, 1 entrance on Midwest Boulevard, right? That is correct. Anything else? So it sounds like we need to just have a motion, one way or the other, on dealing with the limitation, on whether it's going to be we're limiting to a maximum of 21 or a different number. So whoever is making this motion needs to select that number. Let's see where we are.
So are we just adding a TE specifying the number of lots then?
It's already there, so you need, if you're changing it, right now it's limited to a maximum of 21. So either you're changing it and saying, we're going to do a lower number?
I'm going to make a motion to recommend approval of City Council of item PUD 1950 with no change.
And we don't, just to clarify with staff, we don't need any additional language on the points of entry, right? No, okay. So Commissioner Clare moves to recommend approval of PUD 1950 to City Council. Just as a reminder, if approved as the motion's been made, that would limit it to 21 instead of 19 or 20. It'd be a maximum of 21. So that motion's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. For our neighbors, the process is not over. You all know that even if we would have recommended denial of this application, you'd still have to go to City Council in 6 weeks. So your opportunity to advocate for any changes is not over. You can still go, I would recommend and happy to facilitate a meeting with Councilwoman Nice. I think that'd be beneficial for you to share your concerns with her. You also have the ability to talk to members of the City Council, persuade them if you're wanting to make any change based on what's been proposed so far. So just want to be clear about that. Happy to answer any other questions that you all may have as well. Okay, we're in line for item 15.
Shouldn't that be continued to? Didn't we continue the zoning case for 14?
14 was withdrawn.
14 was withdrawn.
Aren't those the same? Or they not?
14's the zoning, 15's the plat.
Yeah.
It turns out they don't need the zoning, but we can go to the applicant
Okay, so.
for that.
Item 15 is case C-7511, preliminary plat of Britton Place, located east of the John Kilpatrick Turnpike and south of West Britton Road, and a variance to section 5.3.1.E.2 of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. To address Mr. Privett's question, ultimately we filed a rezoning application and we withdrew it today. The reason being, it's zoned under PUD 902, and you will see to the east of the subject site, it's also under PUD 902. It turns out that my father sold a bill of goods to the city about 20 to 30 years ago and got a PUD approved with a reversionary clause. The city attorney's office has since deemed reversionary clauses to be improper. The reason being, if you accept a reversionary clause, what you're allowing to have happen is staff administratively to change the zoning without notice and opportunity to be heard. And so, although the staff perhaps improperly reverted the zoning to the east, which is technically zoned I-2 industrial under the PUD, applying the logic that the city attorney's office has come up with, you cannot revert it. Therefore, subject property is zoned R4 and C3 today. And so R4, of course, allows two-family residential, which is what our application was for. So there was no need to move forward with that. So with that said, what you have before you now is simply the plat for a two-family residential development. It does comply with all subregs except the length of the cul-de-sac. And the variance is needed based upon the length created by this awkwardly shaped track. There's no other way to design it except for this. And so we do need the variance to that because the length and the width of the track simply mandates it. So we agree to all the TEs, and we do need the variance on TE number 2. And we did have a neighborhood meeting. Commissioner Clare was there. It was perhaps my most favorite neighborhood meeting I've ever attended. There were 6 people, and it lasted 12 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Questions from, this is Ward 1, Commissioner Clare?
Yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. Like Mr. Box said, we had a good public neighborhood meeting. I think one of the most relevant things to bring up is, again, we've talked about this before, but I think a number of the owners in the neighborhood to the east were, Mr. Box sold the bill of goods at one time by their real estate agent that nothing would ever be developed here. So that was one of their big concerns. So I know as a commission we've talked about how do we initiate some legislation or policy to avoid that. But I think other than that, that's the biggest thing that I got out of this, reading through the letters of objection, is that is still a real issue that we need, somehow it needs to be addressed, whether it's by us or city council or state legislators. So
completely agree with that.
But I'm in support of the application and ready to hear from any neighbors or audience members.
Anybody, any other comments?
There's no dog park or anything trying to go in here, is there?
No.
Okay.
We've had our share of cases. I'll say before we hear from our neighbors, I'm sorry. Because we are here we're here twice a month, so we get to hear this story over and over and over again. And frankly, we're outraged by it, that people can buy homes and have expectations about what will be near them, and then the developer, the builder, does not honor what they said. And so we were upset about it. We actually started having conversations with city council and with other realtors associations because we were not happy about this idea that you could tell people that, oh, nothing will ever be there. It just seems like a bad, it's dishonest. And so, but the reality of where we are is the current zoning allows for the building of commercial development or the building of residential development. That is current. This commission did not take the action to approve that zoning. That is the existing zoning. So today, as we are calling on neighbors, we cannot discuss the land use appropriateness. It's already been determined. There is no action today that this commission can take to eliminate the allowable use of duplexes, period. So as we're having this discussion, the discussion is about the appropriateness of the site layout and whether it's been done appropriately. I don't know if the municipal council's office has any comments about what all we're allowed to take into consideration for the plat.
Generally, when we're looking at plats, we're looking at to see if it meets the zoning requirements as well as the subdivision regulations. So you just have to look at your subdivision regulations to determine whether or not it meets those.
Thank you. So again, we cannot change the land use today. Whether we say yes to the plat, whether we say no to the plat, has nothing to do with the owner's right to build commercial or build C4, or in this case, duplexes.
C4, really?
C3, excuse me. It's C3, R4.
Been around a while.
Okay, no other questions from commissioners? We'll start with James Harlan, and no, this is item 16. Maybe we don't have people. I'm talking about 16. Looks like we don't have people signed up for 15. Then I guess we just need to talk about the variance.
All right. We want to talk about it?
I don't have anything to talk about.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the variance section 5.3.1.E.2 of the subdivision regulations.
Commissioner Clare moves to approve the variance to section 5.3.1.2.E.2 of the subdivision regulations. That motion's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes.
Okay.
And so that motion passes.
And I will move to approve item C7511, subject to the technical evaluations.
Commissioner Clare moves to approve of C7511, subject to the technical evaluations. Motion's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes. And the motion passes. We're in line for item 16.
Item 16 is case C 7587, preliminary plat of Antler Creek, located south of Covell Road and east of North May Avenue, and a variance to section 5.3.1.D.5 of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Brad Reed, the civil engineer, is also here with me. Mr. Chairman, your comments on the last one are certainly applicable here.
It's the same.
This is not a zoning case. What's that? So what you're getting is an exhibit that kind of reflects what the area surrounding this looks like. So this is a tract of land that myself and Mr. Garrett have been working on for quite some time. It was annexed into Oklahoma City, and so, subsequent to the annexation, we actually came forward with a second rezoning application for the R1ZL piece of this development. The R1ZL piece was specifically located in the southeast portion of that site. The reason being, if you look at this map, the northern line of Oklahoma City in this area is all R1ZL. So the site is zoned a combination of R1 and R1ZL, both of which are not relics. They are both very recent applications that were recommended for approval by this commission and approved by the city council. Notice went out, was proper on all of those things. All we are doing here today is platting it. There was a comment made originally when filed. We sought a variance. We can delete TE2. We will meet the stub requirement and make that connection point. So we agree with all the technical evaluations and we can delete TE2 because we no longer need the variance. This is in the urban low LUDA. If you'll recall, staff on their own initiative brought the application for urban low after we annexed this property in. And so now we have a plat consistent with the comprehensive plan. also consistent with the zoning. More importantly, the map before you tells the tale. It's consistent with everything that exists within Oklahoma City. So we ask that you uphold your subregs, your comprehensive plan, and your zoning ordinance and approve this plat.
Thank you. And this is in Ward 8. Commissioner Noble?
Just one question that I have on the access to the common areas. And you agree to the TE, but what's that going to look like?
So at a final plat, we'll show you, but we agree with all those TEs. So as it relates to access to common areas, as it relates to access to the, a stub to the east, we will show all of that at the final plat stage.
Other questions?
Nope.
I think for our neighbors, once again, I know I gave the speech before, but again, we can't address the land use. So the appropriateness, as far as what's allowed in the number of homes, that is, the rezoning has already allows for this level of density. So compliance with the subdivision regs is something that we're allowed to review. But just wanted to be clear that the same statements that were made in the previous application are the case on this one as far as the rezoning, the use. So just wanted to be clear about that. Okay, first person is James Harlan. I think you already knew I was going to call on you first because I almost called on you for the last one. And you have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you. James Harlan, 2633 Northwest 206th Street. I live one of the homes directly across from here. I moved into the area about a year ago, so I know this has been going on longer than I've been around. Excuse me. My biggest complaint here, I have a number, but I was going to limit it for the sake of time to discussing traffic with the number of houses. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess I was under the impression that we could still, I think this was originally listed at 500 homes. Now it's 800. Right across the street, my neighborhood would be directly between two of the proposed driveways here, or entrances to the neighborhood, and that would add about 800 homes times 2 cars per home times 2 trips per day, 3,200 cars per day on a single lane road with 4-way stops in all 4 directions. I drive both of these roads every day, and it's already backed up 10, 12, 15 cars deep sometimes. Adding this many homes is going to, double, triple, quadruple the number of cars we have on this road. So I just don't see how, this is going to be manageable with the 2 lanes that we have in each direction, 4-way stops. Oklahoma City doesn't own those roads. Those are county roads, to my understanding. And so, am I going to be turning out of my driveway every day now with an extra 3,200 cars per day going across both directions? I don't know if that's necessarily relevant to bring up, considering you just mentioned we can't adjust the density, but that's my biggest concern.
Thank you, and certainly understandable. I wasn't even aware that there was a 206th Street in Oklahoma City. I know that this is a far-flung area with limited infrastructure, and so certainly a serious concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dave Webster.
Yes, sir, thank you. I'm just expressing some of the same concerns, and I know you're limited on what you can do. I live in the Southerly Farms Addition, which is about just over a mile to the northeast of this. And I realize they're going to develop this thing, but the density on this is higher than anything else around there. The whole point of planning is to try and, have infrastructure that works with it. Our concern with, this is really going to affect the school district in this area, because this addition can easily have 500 to 600 kids in it, because these are smaller homes, going to be more starter families. The 2 grade schools near there, the Grove Elementary School around the corner has just added on there at about capacity. Prairie Vale, which is up in my neighborhood, is at capacity. Both those schools have an attendance of just over 500 kids. This is going to add another 500 or more. We literally would have to build another school or totally redistrict that area. The other section is we don't have the streets and the infrastructure for it. If you go down to May and 192nd in the morning, it is just totally backed up. Oklahoma City would have to put a light in there. But you look at, if 2/3 of these people go to work in the morning, you could easily have 500 cars coming out of there in the morning. That means they're going to go down to that intersection, or they're going to go over to Portland, which that's a 2-lane road that already backs up. It has a stop sign at May. That is already overloaded. And then some of them are going to go toward Edmond. Well, if you try to go on 206 toward Edmond at both Penn and Western, those intersections back up for like half a mile right now. You add another couple of hundred cars every day, that's going to be a real problem. My other concern is fire protection. These houses are going to be so close, you're going to have about 10 feet eave to eave on these houses. And the other issue you're going to have is those streets are going to be so narrow. And I used to live in the Grove, which has streets about that size. If you, again, your density is going to be so high, you're going to have a lot of on-street parking. If you park 2 good-sized pickups side by side, you cannot get a fire engine down that street. I know that from experience. And the 2 engines that would be first to respond, which would be Oklahoma City Station 37 and Deer Creek Station 1, their trucks are big enough, they're not going to get down there. So the density on this thing is just not like anything else anywhere near there. They're starting at a little high density in addition just to the south, and the addition they're starting to the southwest there. But that is our concern, and I know you're limited on what you can do, but the whole point of, zoning, and especially out in that area, is people move out there to have a little more room, have smaller schools. In doing that, you give up the amenities of shopping, of entertainment, of stuff downtown. This brings all the infrastructure problems out there without any of the amenities. So I hope there's some way they can look at this thing and deny it and go back to the developer and say, come back with something that benefits the surrounding neighborhoods and is not a detriment to the whole area. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to make sure I clarify, because council made sure to remind me. I said I want to make sure I clarify. We certainly can hear, as you all have shared, concerns about the infrastructure. So whether there are the appropriate streets, whether the impact on traffic, those are things we can take into consideration.
Well, and that's the other issue.
We just couldn't rezone it, but because this level of density is actually allowed, is my point.
That's the other issue from a fire standpoint. Only having 3 entrances and exits with that small of streets, it makes it hard to service that.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Next, we have Jason Perez.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Perez, 1513 Northwest 15th Street. I'm the superintendent for Deer Creek Public Schools, so I'm representing the district. I didn't come here today with any preconceived notions that anything that I would say would adjust the plat, but I've been here an hour and a half, so I'm going to go ahead and say my piece anyway. When you look at this proposed plat, and I think about the community that I serve, I'm wondering who this benefits, because it does not benefit the community that I serve. There's not a housing shortage in the Deer Creek area whatsoever, particularly in this proposed area. There's 4 apartment complexes, there's 5 new housing additions. Housing is not an issue, and the variety of housing is also not an issue for us. So to say that this could provide more opportunity for people to be able to move into our area, we don't know what the pricing is going to be. That's not something that this council or the other council can have any say in whatsoever. I worry significantly about the traffic congestion that's already been mentioned. Of course, obviously, my biggest concern is the increase to our school district, but what I am seeing is it's a perceived indifference by the city to this community, to be perfectly honest. There are continual approvals of high-density housing without any infrastructural support that's coming that way. There's no discussion about increasing lanes and roads so we can get fire safety through. There's nothing that's being discussed about helping to push more water lines, more sewer lines into the area so we can have retail in that area to be able to offset this growth, because our bonded capacity cannot keep up with this level of growth that's being proposed in plats like this. But this doesn't seem to really be an issue that anybody's wanting to address whatsoever, and it's just well, I guess you're just going to have to deal with it because we're going to allow them to be able to do stuff like this. The developers who want to add 809 houses into such a small space don't live in our area. Their kids don't go to our schools. They don't deal with that traffic on a daily basis. But the people that I serve every day, they do. And they are deeply concerned about the indifference that the city has towards them when changes like this occur and there's no communication coming our way. We can talk all day that the proper notices were out. I didn't receive anything. There's no communication coming to us saying, is this good for your community? Because if the question has been really proposed, saying going from 500 to 809, I think the answer was already pretty clear to begin with. So I would oppose 500 lots, obviously, but I adamantly oppose 809 lots because there is nothing here that benefits the community that this is supposed to be in. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next, we have Kevin Ewing. I hope I said that. I hope I got it right.
Yes, Ewing.
Okay, great.
I live directly across the street from that. I've got the pond there on the north side of it. And I mean, I share all the concerns of my neighbors. My biggest thing is with you all is we had support from Ray Vaughn through from county commissioner at the time. Kevin Calvey did nothing for us. And then I've talked to Miles and he's like, you know, it's all over with. But my thing is I've received 2 letters through this whole process of what is going on. I received one back in early November of 21 or whenever it was. It says, hey, we're going to annex this. There was meetings, they were postponed, or I don't know what, they move them forward. The annexation didn't take place until late in January, and nobody knew about it. Nobody showed up at the council meeting because nobody knew that this meeting was happening. This last rezoning that took place from the ZL from R1, nobody received a letter except for the people in that southern addition. All of us neighbors around that thing did not receive one letter that this ZL was going to take place. So therefore, there was nobody there to protest it. So I'm just saying to you all, where are the notifications to us, to your neighbors? I know this is a done deal and we're screwed, but do something on your part to notify us and keep us informed when something like this is happening. Just like why would the superintendent of schools, when there's a zoning going on anywhere within that district, why would he not receive a letter and say, hey, this is what's happening in your district? I mean, he doesn't have the staff or the time to sit there and watch your meeting agenda every, twice a month, once a month? I don't even know how often you guys meet. But I mean, and there's 20 line items. I mean, they don't have the resources to follow such a thing. And I, as a citizen, running my own business and running my own life, I don't have time to watch, like Mr. Boxey, he's here every day and has every meeting going on and can step in and do anything. But just for your future planning and everything else, let people know what the heck is going on so that we know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. I do want to say this. I 100% agree with you about the notice requirement. You can still have a seat. But
I just have one more thing. City of Edmond, when they have something going on in a rezoning, they put a sign out on that piece of property. There has never been one sign anywhere notifying the public that there is going to be a zoning meeting on a property. I think it'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more with you on the notice requirement. Just so we're clear, the notice requirement is set by state statute, and then the city council has the authority to determine whether to increase that minimum requirement that the state statute sets. We as the Planning Commission do not have the authority to set the requirements for who's given the notice or whether we do a signed notice, but I would join you in talking to my state legislators. I would join you in talking to our city council members because I'm in full support. But we don't have that authority here. So whenever you're ready to come up, send me the petition because I'm ready, because I agree with you. As far as the superintendent's statements, that notice also does not require that we notify the school district, which I think is unfortunate. Are they notified? Okay, I'm hearing that they do get notified. He's saying he did not get it. So, but.
Nothing's coming to my box.
But.
All day long. Nothing's coming to my box from the city.
So.
Yes, city, no.
Okay, but either way, the issue still remains the same, and I've said it a number of times. I'm sure you've probably been here. The times that I've said it, I think that the way that our public school system is funded, especially the unique nature of Deer Creek, makes it very difficult for them to be able to scale up quickly with the number of people who want to live in their area. And part of why people want to live in their area, because they're doing such a great job running the school system. And so I think there needs to be changes. Unfortunately, this commission is not the place to do it. Again, I'll join you. Whenever you're ready to go to the Capitol, whenever you're ready to go to the City Council, I'm with you. Because I agree, we're not doing enough to make sure that the school systems are ready and have the resources that it takes to scale up as growth happens. We don't have that authority here at the commission. I wish we did, but I'm with you. We don't have, all the tools we have is to say no to development. That's the only tool in our toolbox here. I think that's unfortunate. So as far as the land use is concerned, which is our purview, this is consistent with what our subdivision regulations say. It's consistent with the zoning. That is an unsatisfactory answer for neighbors who have to send their kids to school, who have to drive down those roads, and I'm sorry. Our process needs work. Our notification needs work. Unfortunately, this venue is not the place to implement those changes. So I hope we can work together in finding the way to get there. So that's my statement on that. Other thoughts, commissioners, before we hand it back to the applicant?
If I could briefly, I just want to
Sure.
address some of the points. There was a statement made that there's no density like this anywhere. Everything south of us is this density, if not higher. The Valencia neighborhood, which is exactly 1 mile to the south, is this exact density plus an apartment project on the hard corner. The Grove is this density. All of the Home Creations neighborhood on our southern border are this density. In terms of the proximity of the houses to each other, that meets your code, that meets your subregs. Safety, obviously, is embedded in how the city adopts zoning ordinances as it relates to separation between houses. The separation between our houses will match everything that exists on the south.
David, before you continue, I neglected to call on
sorry.
Kristen Thompson, so let's let her come up and speak. Very sorry. Glad you waved.
Thanks for having me. Kristen Thompson, 4001 Bird Neck. I'm here in actually 2 capacities. One, as a mom of Deer Creek kiddos. This neighborhood feeds directly into Prairieville Elementary, where I have a child. The number of kids will not be split, so if we're going to estimate 400 new students, that's all going to the elementary school. Fortunately for you two, I am also the state senator for District 22.
Great, I'm talking to the right person.
Open meetings is on my to-do list for next year. So with that said, my biggest concern, we're also in the development space. I'm not anti-development, I'm not anti-growth. I am responsible growth and responsible neighbors and partners. So with that said, I think it's very, very important to, yes, although this is in alignment with the historical regulations of Oklahoma City, this piece of property has only been a part of Oklahoma City for about 18 months or so. I don't want to rehash that, but my biggest concern here is who's responsible for these streets now? Because everything south of here is 4-lane, and then right where you see that little building on that northwest corner of May, right there, that is where the 4-lane road ends. So this is a 2-lane road and this is a 2-lane road. So if we're assuming 809 homes, we can round down 1,400 vehicles out of 1, 2, 3 entrances onto 2-lane roads. Who's responsible for maintaining that?
I can call on Public Works. I can't answer that question, Senator.
Okay. And you do not have to call me that. We were talking about the open records and you said you needed help and I said, hello, here.
Yeah, we need help. Yeah, for
Great.
sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like we need to talk to you about some bills.
Yeah.
Barry Lodge, Public Works. So as far as, as far as maintenance of the roads that have been annexed into the city of Oklahoma City, the city is responsible for that, for the maintenance on those roads. There's not any edict placed upon the city for a improvement of the roads. That is always generated by the development in the area, and the improvement of roads on the section lines is typically going to be a bond issue project, which is going to be voted on by the residents of Oklahoma City. Those will be placed as potential projects as the growth in the area demands. And that would have been the case for the improvement of May Avenue from 192nd north to where the city limits occurred. That was a previous city bond issue, as were the streets going from 192nd to 178th and around that entire mile surrounding the Grove. So that's kind of the process for that. But so with the roads that have been included in that annexation, the city would be responsible for the maintenance.
Barry, just another question. So I know this happens a lot of times, but does Oklahoma City own half of those roads? Is that the way this was set up?
That is generally the way that it's done. In this particular case, I have not looked at the legal description of the annexation, but that is usually the way that happens. And it's also not unusual, though, for there to be joint city-county resolutions for maintenance or improvement of the roads when the conditions warrant.
Jeff, do you have something to add about that?
Yeah, my recollection and the appearance from our city database is that we annexed to the southern property line of that right-of-way in the north, so the county would maintain, I believe, that road.
That could be true, yeah.
And then, but the city did annex to the property, or to the western side of the right-of-way on May Avenue. So we would maintain that road. We'd be responsible for any improvements that would be needed on that.
Okay, so help me make sure I understand. So Covell to May, the city is responsible for that. But on that northern entrance, that northern side of the development where there's two entrances, we have to hope that the county is going to partner with us on a development that was just dropped into Oklahoma City city limits 18 months ago. Am I understanding correctly?
The northern street
Yes.
is not incorporated in Oklahoma City. Therefore, the city of Oklahoma City is not responsible for its maintenance. May Avenue was incorporated. Therefore, the city of Oklahoma City is responsible for its maintenance.
Got it. I think you understand where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And in 2025, there'll be another bond issue. And so,
Sure, but
it-
that's,
it
I
would
mean,
deem
that's
these
3
people-
years, you know.
right.
It's-
Well,
and the way it's,
and this neighborhood's not going to be built out in 3 years.
I know he might have a question that I'm going to direct you to staff because I bet Sarah can answer your question.
Can we add another entrance to May? Instead of having everything, just the three, can we do one on Covell and two on May, since that'll probably be 4-lane onto May?
Let's see what they say.
Yes, we can add another entrance onto May. I don't know that it makes sense to limit Covell to one from a safety standpoint.
Yeah.
It is worth noting that there's a long-range plan that's already been approved to widen Covell all the way from I-35 all the way to Portland, State Highway 74, which is west of this.
Okay.
So,
So you're in agreement with adding another entrance
on May.
on May Avenue?
No, we're not, yeah. We don't want to remove one. Yes, so we'll add one on May so that there would be a total of four.
Two on that's Covell, 206 is Covell?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wasn't following.
Yeah, 2 on
Okay.
Covell, 2 on May. And it is worth noting that, as with every building permit, there will be funds added via the traffic impact fee. So that will go to the fund that Public Works manages and ultimately available to be deployed when something is needed. But from a traffic standpoint, your traffic management division does get notice of these and did respond to this staff report with an asterisk, meaning no adverse comment. And I understand the superintendent's frustration and anger, but all I can say is notice is getting to the school district. Now, the fact that it's not getting to his desk, I understand that, but your staff listed right here in review comments, other agencies receiving notice. Deer Creek School District. So they're getting it. I appreciate the fact that it's not making it to his desk, and I understand that that's frustrating. But when Chairman Cravens was here, there was a big effort to get the school districts together. I don't know if the city was always sending notices, but certainly since that time, all the school districts that have an application relevant to their particular district gets notice of not only the zoning, but also the plat applications. So we're happy to answer any questions, but we can add a TE to require a second point of access off May Avenue.
David, how long is it going to take to complete this development?
10 years.
Okay.
I mean, these don't move fast, and this is just the preliminary plat, and we'll have to come back with a final plat after the engineers do all the really intensive surveys and studies, and only then can we turn dirt. And so full build. Well, I can tell you, I've been involved on the track to the south. That started in about 2014, 2015. Valencia took, well, it's still building out. It was a 2005 PUD. So I know the concern is when you look at it, it feels like overnight there's going to be all these homes, but the reality is it's going to take a decade, and that will allow bond issues to come forward, and that will allow traffic impact fees to be generated.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Noble?
I would like to say that this is still higher density than the Grove. I lived in the Grove, and the Grove has sections of high density like this, but it also has sections with much lower density to this. Where I lived was probably lots twice that size. The addition to the west of the school in a Grove is even bigger lots than that. The same way with Valencia, there's a lot of small houses like this, but there's others in there. Most of these other additions have a mix of really high density and then some larger lots. This is nothing but high density.
Questions, comments from commissioners?
There's a mix of R1 and R1ZL. It's not all the highest density. I dare ask this question, but it's probably irrelevant at this point. Why was this incorporated 18 months ago? Is that relevant at all to this conversation of the process of this being incorporated?
No.
It's done and it's done.
Yeah.
We can go get coffee if you've got an hour,
Okay.
and I'll tell you the tale.
Let's leave that.
Commissioner Noble?
With that, I'm in favor of the preliminary plat. It will return. It'll go to council. There are plenty of other opportunities on this, but
Yeah, there will be another, so even if the preliminary plat, if it's approved, there'll still be another opportunity with the final plat to see this. It would have the two entrances at that point, so we know where those two entrances on May Avenue would be. So just wanted to be clear with the neighbors about that.
Is that when landscaping and lighting and all that stuff is put into the?
I think we're ready for, oh, is it?
with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for approval of preliminary plat C7587.
Striking TE2.
Striking TE2.
Because they're going to comply with TE2.
Yes.
Then adding a new TE on the second access point onto May.
For additional entrance to May and the other 7 TEs.
Commissioner Noble moves to approve C7587, subject to the following amendments to the technical evaluations. Delete TE2, add TE9, requiring an additional entrance to the division by on May Avenue. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Is there a second? If there's no second, then the motion can't. Okay, this motion's been seconded by Commissioner Clare. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
The motion passes. We are now, we've now reached the end of our separate items requiring separate vote. We're in line for additional items. Are there any additional items? I don't think there are. Communications and reports, Planning Commission committees. Any reports from committees? Planning Commission members, Commissioner Clare.
Nothing for me?
Commissioner Privet.
No.
Nothing from Commissioner Govine. Commissioner Noble. Commissioner LaForge. I'll say quickly, if Commissioner Meek is watching, we hope you're getting well soon. We missed you already, and hope you are well and healing. I will say this: we've had a number of meetings. We've had lunches with Planning Commission members. I've enjoyed them. We've been talking about some of these sort of issues like notice and other things that we'd love to be able to share with council. Hey, can we get something done about this, such as minimum lot sizes for aerobic septic systems? And so I think the goal is to try to compile those things and formally say to the council, hey, these are things that we keep seeing that we'd love for you all to do something about. And I think that's an appropriate thing for us as the Planning Commission to do. So I just wanted to let you all know that we appreciate having those conversations. Hope we can get something compiled and then make a clear recommendation. So I just wanted to make that update and say you all are great and we enjoyed it.
Can I add to that?
Please.
It had not dawned on me at all that there is no notice board physically posted on rezoning applications. in the
Another
city
thing
of
we need to
OKC.
require.
And I've never been in a city that's not done as a matter of standard practice, and we should be doing that here.
We've discussed it numerous times.
We have.
On this commission, you weren't here yet, but yeah, obviously.
We even had a whole study session on like the notice, like the letter, where we talked about changes to the letter. That was several years, that was like 2 years ago, wasn't it? 2 or 3?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah, because we were that concerned about the quality of the notice that's
And
given.
then the whole sign thing boils down to who's gonna pay for it, who's gonna maintain it and update it, and, if PUD changes, meeting day changes, yeah. I'm always under, there'd be a developer issue, and they would deal with it, not the city, but.
That is usually the case, and there's a standard template
Yeah,
that can be
I see 'em in
distributed.
Edmond
that
all the time and
send-
Choctaw all the time. I see 'em all the time.
Tells where people to go to get more information.
Yeah, and this is what's proposed to be here. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think now it's just the planning department.
Excuse me. On the notification, so the commission's aware, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, but it's been a while. We are working with the city's IT department because there has been interest occasionally in this. It gets brought up, I don't know, I want to say every 6 months to 12 months with either a commissioner or two or a city council member. And we typically, JJ put a little memo together years ago, and it's got 5 or 6 bullet points, kind of pros and cons, and I think you kind of articulated most of them. I think the one that you didn't mention was there's, graffiti and vandalism that happens to these things, and there are definitely issues. So we thought, well, what if we had a digital system that would allow people to just say, look, I want to know about whatever's going on in this area. This is my neighborhood. This is the area that I'm concerned about. And that would be less costly, easier, just come to people's inboxes or whatever. So we're working on that right now as a good alternative, because to this point, nobody's really been willing to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, because of those downsides that I mentioned and others. I think I'm forgetting 1 or 2. So just so you're aware, we're looking into that. Some cities do have some version of that. It's more common to have just a map that shows all the current zoning cases. Well, then you have to remember to check it. So we'd like to go beyond that. The other thing, we have a study session, or we would like to have a study session next meeting, the 26th. That's the 26th?
We might want to hold off on that. My understanding is that I think we're only going to have 5 commissioners that day.
I understand, but if we don't have it then, we run into a bit of a time crunch. It would be December, and it's up to you. It's up to you all. But our thinking was we'd like to have a study session on the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, which we'd like to bring forward. We also have several comp plan amendments that we have in mind to support the code update, and some other things, some kind of cleanup issues that we need to do. So we were hoping for that. If you all don't want to do that, I understand, but that would be our proposal. We can't do it November 9th, unfortunately, so that would push it back till December. And if that's what it is, then it is what it is. But
Question, I mean, does it have to be, it's very convenient when we hold it on, at 11 before Planning Commission, but does it have to be on a Thursday?
it doesn't have to be. If you'd like us to look at other days, we can do that.
I think I'd prefer that, because here's my concern. We're going to be here a long time, it sounds like, on November 9th. We're going to be here, we usually are here for a longer period of time in December. So I'm just worried about, you do a study session at 11 o'clock, and then as much as I enjoy all of your company, we're likely to be here for a very late evening, so that makes for a very long day.
Okay, we'll send out a poll and look at alternative dates then.
But if not, I'd say let's go with December then, if we can't make anything else work.
I almost prefer breaking them separate, just because you still have a half day of actual day job work.
Right.
Without killing the whole thing. So I'm good either way.
Wait, you have a day job? It shocks me how many people think we get paid for this and like, this is my job. Like, I'm like, no, absolutely not. This is my volunteer responsibility. Commissioner LaForge?
A question, did we continue an item to November 26th?
No.
We didn't?
No.
As I was writing them down earlier, I thought I wrote that. Okay,
Probably
good.
heard October 26th.
October 26th.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right, municipal councilors off. Oh,
Can we say one more thing about school noticing?
please.
I just wanted to clarify how that we do schools, because we mail what are called development reviews, which go out prior to the council notice. So we to the Planning Commission meeting notice. So we mail the schools a development review, which is asking them to provide comments in time for us to put them in your staff report. And so just this month, starting this month, November and December, we are mailing letters to everyone who receives a printed copy to let them know we're no longer going to be printing them. We want to do it by email. And so I spoke with Mr. Perez just now to make sure we have their proper email or their proper mailing address, because I'm not sure why they're not receiving them. They also received a notice for the plat hearing today. So I just want to let you all know that we are on that. We are notifying schools, and we'll be switching in 2024 from mail to email.
We have been doing that for many years, notifying school districts and so on. So I mean, some of it is, they need to also make sure that they keep their contact information updated with us. So, but we did want to clarify that.
That's great. That's helpful. Thank you. Not going to be satisfactory if you're in Deer Creek, unfortunately, but at least they're getting some notice, I hope, now. All right, Municipal Council's office? All right, citizens to be heard? Any citizens to be heard? No, okay, seeing as we have no further business, we are now adjourned.